everyone, welcome to episode 263 of The Racist Want Everything. You're joined by Fenian, and of course I've got Nolsey, and I hope your internet is working now, Nolsey.
I hope so too.
Okay, good. Had some technical issues there, and anyway, guys, obviously there is definitely a lot to cover this week. Before we get to the big topic, though, I'm going to hand it over to Nolsey, who has some special news for you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So I kind of dropped hints over my live stream and on this show before that, I was looking into what seemed to be a politically motivated firing of an older Irish gentleman from the Armadale Library by the name of Declan Mansfield. And it originally, this little case of mine interested me because there was a lot of stuff that Declan had said in his interview with the Freedom of Speech Union Australia that would be quite easy to verify, would require little detective work to verify. So he stated three things that he the cause of his termination for speaking out against at the Armadale Library. If they were critical of certain ideologies.
What was he speaking out against specifically? Can you say?
Gender ideologies, specifically.
Okay. Like, did they have children's books that were pushing that kind of thing?
Yes. They said that they were even removing Harry Potter books from the shelf because of the comments made by J.K. Rowling.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of places that do that.
I can physically
Rabble
yes
books and games. They refuse to stock anything by J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, there's a reason why Rabble books and games is like that. You don't need to look too fucking deep into as to why.
I know. Well, look, they're
but
like
the main concerning thing is that the main concern. And they do list these books on their website for you to be able to check them out. Down at least to the Armadale Library, and I'll see if this is the case. If the titles that he said in his interview were missing, and they were. So a tick for a Declan telling the truth, and then one of his other complaints was that they'll come and withdraw certain titles as well, the same titles. And I went, checked out some interesting titles, some titles that were written by some spicy authors, and they go. So one of the things that libraries on their back end use for these kinds of appointments or to check inventory and stock and etc. Is the three main ones for this are Libcom, Li, and Demso or Demco. So those are the your administration software.
Okay. I
figured like, hey, look, oh my fucking god.
Well, look, continue. We'll see how bad it gets.
It's a connection. Okay. And that was the case. I thought like, okay, I'll call up outfit and kind of like congratulate the person or the people responsible for getting rid of such a bigot. And I did, and I ended up getting transferred to a management character in the store that only identified himself by his first name, who was really very proud and happy to gloat about firing him, but also encouraged me to if I can promote another upcoming event in Western Australia, which had no public advertising at the time. Prom, admitting ages between 12 and 25.
Right. Which this was like a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it?
Broadcast that.
The queer prom.
I was interested in that. I was like, okay, this is weird. You know, like, you know, what's going on here? So in the interim, I'm, you know, getting people to, and by the way, for everyone who actually sent in photos, that was great, of their local libraries. I managed to find that stuff was going on in the Rockingham and the Mandurah and Karana library. So you know, these behaviors were also continuing, so it wasn't just a incident to one library. So it made me think, like, okay, so we got a very obviously politically motivated firing. We've got someone who obviously works Youth Pride WA working, and he was you know, also very, very happy to talk about firing the person. So I'm going to look into that, because it occurred to me that we covered daycare, certain people who shouldn't have passed a police check due to, you know, actions, to use a euphemism, in other states were managing to in other states due to a fuck up in communications in the police check system. So obviously we covered the daycare centers in Queensland and etc. I believe there was also one in here and a one in Victoria as well. These places handle children, you know. You know, maybe I should. So I bring up because these organizations have little to no security. They often the, you know, names and faces of people, and it's not that hard, especially when you've got help from certain organizations that do actually, like, just be like, hey, look, you know, is there anything, you know, related to this, you know, da 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 da, and for even people working in both public libraries, which is also, like, you can find that, and also associated with state pride groups. There was an overlap of 27 who their police checks due to sexual misconduct violations, such as laws relating to titles, the Protection of Youth and Age of Consent Acts, and the distribution and manufacture and distribution of child sexual abuse materials. 27. And an oddity, I know, you'll never expect that, right? Actually, there was one thing in that list I didn't expect. There was a woman in that list. Now, because there's been no charges laid, there's been, you know, as it currently stands, action in regards to this. I can't, you know, name and shame. I have talked to about this, unfortunately. Yes, I will snitch when it comes to these kinds of he'll be getting back in contact with me if Charles, and then I know we can say their name out there. But yeah,
okay.
So that's the current state of our local public institutions, Finian.
Well, look, it doesn't surprise me, and librarians are definitely that class of people who basically they are all like super feminist lefties with all the gay shit that comes with it. Like, even more so than university professors are, academics. There's something about librarians. And
yeah,
look, I actually
I was talking with Jordan from
yeah.
Might be a bit of a delay between us. I was talking to Jordan about that, and he says, like, look, just it's the demographic thing. It's like either like people who are ideologically motivated, it's very easy for them to get into public government institutions, and also like middle-aged single like cat women. Also, they've got that bent to them, and that's the other demographic. You know, he told me about a time that he was actually working with to put together a software package that did payroll for government institutions, and he could actually see like the internal chats. So like when he was communicating with these people, I guess through Teams or something, he was telling me about how he was just looking at the most like brutally degenerate ideological fucking talk going in on the back end of these things. So even he was like, yeah, no, like you should have expected this.
Yeah, I had not been to a public library in years, but like I drive around for work, and because it's quite hot now, there is a particular library. When I've got time to kill, I go in there because it's air conditioned. So I just go in there and I sit on my laptop for a while. And yeah, I forgot how bad they were. I mean, for starters, all the staff are women. They're all fat. They all have dyed hair. Many of them have tattoo sleeves. Um, but also, just all the books. I remember on one shelf there was like whatever Al Gore's latest book is, something on, it was called like A Homosexual History, was another book. There was another one on unpacking white privilege. Just any kind of title like that, anything I guess that you would find at Rabble Books and Games was on display at this library. But remember, these are public libraries that are taxpayer funded. You know, Rabble Books
Yep.
and Games, I mean, look, they do stock a lot of stuff that I would classify as obscenity and therefore would be banned. But you know, look, they're a private company. That's not as bad as the library doing it, pushing all of this anti-white, pro-gay, pro-refugee bullshit. And yeah, I mean, I just encourage anyone, go to your local library, and I pretty much guarantee, no matter which one you go to, it'll be paused. Even the ones in like Western Sydney, that, you know, where you have like a majority of Muslims in that area, even then they manage to still
Mm.
put books in those libraries that have, you know, stories about kids having two mums and shit like that. So yeah, everything you've told me about this place
Look, like
doesn't
it.
surprise me. The one thing
Uh,
that surprises me is that Armadale has a library. That's all. I
oh
didn't know
yeah, I
people.
was about to say like this is Armadale as well. This isn't exactly like a mega posh area, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah,
for those
it
who
was
are unfamiliar,
it was kind of
Armadale is
shocking.
like, it's our most like derelict suburb by far in WA.
Yeah, and when I walked into the one in Armadale, because this is like I knew that I knew that I was gonna fucking find bullshit happening as soon as I looked and saw that first aisle where it had like get a magazine about like gay cowboys, and, like a lifestyle magazine
Oh,
about gay cowboys, and a
okay.
autobiography of Lennon on the same shelf.
Oh yeah, I think you showed me that one. Yeah,
No, sorry, a biography of Lennon. Yeah, so that was just
and
nuts. Just
and
immediately right off the fucking gate, I was like, okay.
and a book on OCD.
Oh
Am I
yeah,
thinking of
that too.
the
Yeah,
picture? Yeah.
yeah, that's the right photo. Um, yeah. So what I also ended up doing was, I did go to the queer prom thing and see what the fuck was going on, and took some photos. And it was meant to be a ticketed event, and it was meant to have an age range of 12 to 24 or 25. But inside, I saw like on organizers, because the organizers were wearing these like little vests and whatnot. 40-year-old dudes coming in, and the Shenzhen community between a uh, just a stock standard school, not a middle school, it was an elementary school, and a kindergarten. And they were soliciting children, obviously, because that's soliciting children out the front, just if they wanted to come in. So obviously, I showed you those. Yeah, with the help of one of the people over here that was very, very familiar with these guys, and through being homeless at one point, because these groups work hand in hand with the Youth Homeless Association. They'll identify a few of these people, and then that's started connecting dots, like, oh wait, this guy has a history of like, you know, sexual scandals even in the program, because, you know, if you are a predator, where are you going to find the most vulnerable children who can't really do anything about your abuse?
So they deliberately target like
So, yeah.
children who are homeless.
Yes.
Wow, that is beyond sick.
So
Okay.
yeah, no, that is they're hosting events at your local community hall, and the age range posted on the web 25 was absolute fucking bullshit, even though that was disgusting in itself.
Yeah, there was a lot of attention on, well, not a lot. There was some attention on social media about that. For those who couldn't quite hear, Nolsey's connection's chopping out a little bit, but there was a queer prom event on in Shenton Park a few weeks ago, which is one of our rich suburbs, like the opposite of Adelaide, of Armidale. And the age range for this queer prom was 12 to 25. That's right. And yeah, they were trying to get like young people, children,
It definitely
into it.
wasn't.
And of course, they spin this by saying that, you know, it's a place to help people discover who they are. Well, you know, that's the same way sexual predators put it, you know, when they talk about like helping like young homosexuals realize their gay identity. What that really means is they want to fuck them. And sometimes when that happens, those victims will spin the exact same story and say, no, 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 I wasn't abused. This person, this much older person, simply realized who I was. Um, you look at like Milo Yiannopoulos. I mean, now he refers to what happened to him as abuse, but before the scandal, before he got fired from Breitbart and all that, he was saying that he was the sexual predator. He was saying that he like targeted older men and that it wasn't abuse at all. Um, and you know, I do
Lol,
actually
no.
encourage people to have a listen. I don't know, Nolsey, I know you definitely would have heard the coverage on TRS, um, but I do encourage people to watch
The
that
time, yeah.
interview that Milo did with Tucker Carlson. Uh, that is, he gives you a very, very honest account of what life is really like for a gay man. Um, and it's not good. And like clearly in that interview, Milo is like hungover or scattered or something. You know, you can tell he's not all there. You can tell he's been abusing some kind of substance not long before the interview. So, yeah, definitely recommend that. Anyway, should we get on to
Okay.
the big
Fun
story?
that. Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Now, look, I really don't have prep for this. Whenever one of these big stories is on, I basically don't put any prep in front of me. I just try to go off the cuff here because I've just read so much about this, as I'm sure you have, Nolsey. So, if you've been living under a rock, we had
Yeah.
what has been deemed to be the biggest terrorist attack ever in Australia. 15 people dead, 16 if you include one of the gunmen. He was the father, I believe. He's the dead one, isn't he? But the son is alive.
Of the other
Um,
gunman, yeah.
yeah, so 50-year-old. Um, the younger bloke, I heard that he is half Indian, half Italian. Have you heard this?
Yeah, he was originally from India, or he was born in India, or something like that. Oh no, so the father was born technically Indian, but really from like the very far northwest of India. So you can kind of
Yeah.
catch why
Oh,
they're
look,
saying
yeah.
it's an
A
Islamic
lot of people
attack.
don't realize just how many Muslims are in India. There are a shit ton of Muslims in India. Absolute shit ton. even though they're divided partitioned the country with Pakistan and Bangladesh to kind of separate those Muslim pockets. They're just the really densely pockets that are have a concentrated Muslim population. There are Muslims scattered all over India. So, but look, is this a religiously motivated attack? Yeah. Is it ethnically motivated? Yes. And you
Yeah.
could possibly even say it's racially
Yep.
motivated as well, because plenty of secular Jews celebrate Hanukkah. It's just as much a secular celebration of the Jewish people to them than it is a religious holiday. So, yeah, it's
It's a
kind of
massive
like
cope
with all
about
of those
to try and bud out Christmas, in my opinion.
yeah, no, it is. It's to
Yeah.
they're saying that like, well, if you're going to have a holiday with that much meaning, we're going to compete with you, and we're going to make ours 8 days long as well. So, now, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu has blamed the attack directly on Anthony Albanese. I was watching Josh Frydenberg just earlier. He essentially said the same thing. Sky News, of course, is saying that they've been doing it ad nauseum, on repeat, just again and again and again, talking about how there has been a rising tide of anti-Semitism, and it's just like a linear progression, where eventually the top is going to be blown, and you just get a terrorist attack. That's like the trajectory of anti-Semitism. No, it doesn't really work that way. Okay, what happens is you fill the country up with enough people uh, that hate Jews and bitterly, violently hate Jews, and you also let in enough Jews themselves to share that very same territory that the Jew
Yeah, I was gonna
haters
say this
share.
is this
That's what it
situation
is.
came about the same way that epoxy sets. You've got your A, your part A, which is the Jewish community. You get your part B, which is the Islamic community. You put them in the same fucking bucket and mix, and you're gonna have this.
Yes, that is all it is. And I would just like to ask, people at Sky News who are just endlessly saying that this is a failure of the Prime Minister not to crack down on anti-Semitism. Would you have actually done anything substantively different than Anthony Albanese? In other words, would you have put restrictions on the amount of Jews and the amount of Muslims entering Australia? Would you have actually done that? Because if your answer is no, you would get the same outcome. You would get the exact same thing. It doesn't matter how many Nazi symbols you ban, or how many gestures or slogans or uniforms that you ban, or how many hate speech laws you manage to pass, or how many people you throw in jail for sending tweets. Uh, we know we're going to get more of that. Chris Minns, the New South Wales Premier, has already talked about that. Uh, we are going to be
Oh my
banning guns.
fucking god! Chris Minns was interviewed about, yeah, Chris Chris Minns was interviewed about this, and he was saying like, "Oh look, are you looking to crack down on hate preachers in West Sydney?" And literally, he stuttered for all of about eight seconds long, an 8 second long stutter, and then just mentioned, "Well, we've made legislation targeting Nazis." It's like that's what the fuck are you going on about, Chris Minns? What
Yeah,
the
who
fuck is
fired the
going on,
guns?
buddy?
No, Anthony Albanese has done this as well. Um,
Yes.
when he keeps talking about the checklist. If you look at his press conference that he did right after Bondi, um, he actually went on for about a full 3 minutes through like a checklist of legislation and measures that the federal government had put forth to combat anti-Semitism. I kind of went through a few of them before, like banning the symbols and the salutes and that kind of thing. And it's like almost everything that he went through was targeted at so-called right-wing extremists or white supremacists and everything.
Mm.
I mean, do we really have to remind Chris Minns and Albo who was pulling the triggers here? Was it like anyone from NSN? Was it anyone like were these skinheads?
Definitely.
We just don't do stuff like that.
No, he's just. I think
We
he's
just
fucked
don't.
now. Yeah. Yeah. Granted, these are like right leaning, ethnically Jewish commentators saying this, but they basically turn around saying like, you are targeting the wrong fucking thing. You are targeting the wrong organizations, the wrong, symbols, the wrong actions. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, can you pull your head out of your ass? And those people influence the lobby groups over here. We got a real big one. So I think Chris Minns might need to, put his shit together. I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well, look. You know what?
Stop
I
wigging
think
out about Joel.
I can find a way. I can find a way to blame right-wing extremists for this, right? Even though we are not the ones who pulled the trigger. And here's how we're to blame for it. With all of the attention that we have brought to ourselves, protesting outside New South Wales Parliament and sending inflammatory tweets, etc. The amount of media attention that we have garnered has resulted in police attention and intelligence attention. And so, yeah, that's why Joel Davis sits in a jail cell right now for a tweet that he sent. So I think that what happened was
Yeah, and
we have become
these gunmen.
such a distraction that ASIO and the AFP and local police, etc., have essentially dropped the ball when they should have been looking at Islamic terrorism, specifically Sunni Muslim terrorism, which is still by far the biggest terrorist threat in Australia and has been for decades. They were looking at what the NSN and Joel Davis and Thomas Sewell were doing this whole time, that they didn't seem to notice, the elephant in the room. And they basically let all of this stuff go when they should have been surveilling them. One of them had even traveled to the Philippines, apparently to do military training. Okay. Because they have Islamic.
Yeah, and by the way,
so that's
I
how
was
we're
going
to
to say
blame.
not a lot of people know that, but there was a U.S.
We
military
have actually
operation
caused
in the
such a
north.
distraction here
Oh yeah,
to the
definitely.
authorities that we are actually to blame for this.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So,
all right.
So what is it exactly that Sky News have been calling for? Well, to their credit, they're actually not saying anything about right-wing extremism. In fact, they pointed out that many of the laws passed were directed at us, even though we weren't actually out there torching their cars or lighting up their synagogues or shooting at them. So they've said things like ban extremist groups. So obviously that would be various Muslim groups. They've also talked about, well, what you just mentioned before, which is shutting down extremist preachers. Now, I think that might well come. I do think that. But Crispin has also mentioned that multiculturalism in New South Wales now is combustible. Do you remember before he said basically we needed restrictions on speech and political communication and demonstrations because of the fact that multiculturalism in New South Wales was fragile. Now he's actually talking about just banning protests completely, or at least during this heightened state of terrorist threat. That, rest assured, would run right until Australia Day. Okay? They're looking to ban marches. So they're looking to actually ban pro-Palestine rallies, and they're looking to ban Australia Day rallies because all of these have ethnic connotations to them. And when you have a combustible multiculturalism, the social fabric is so weak that anything could set it off. And what do you end up with then? The cold civil ethnic war that's been going on in Australia, as it has all over the West, suddenly becomes a hot war, and Cronulla will look like a walk in the park. Crispin's got a point.
Yeah, no, this could kick off.
Crispin has a point when he says that. But Chris Minns, this is what we've been saying about multiculturalism for decades, that it does create a combustible environment. You start forcing people who hate each other to share the same territory, and then you wonder why they start shooting at each other. So it is combustible.
Again, you get riots, then you get pogroms. You get riots, and then you get hordes of people going into certain suburbs and torching houses.
Yeah. So look,
hey, would you put it past the community of West Sydney to do that?
Now, but I know. But what would actually then happen, right? If Chris Minns tried to ban, the so-called hate preachers, and at the same time banned what, say, Sky News would consider to be Islamic extremist groups. Well, that also could light this combustible environment as well, because they're going to openly resist. They're going to retaliate. And, the UK has really shown that banning these groups actually doesn't really work. Because you know what they do? They just form another one with a new name. And they just play with the membership list a bit. There's countless amounts of groups in the UK that have done that. So that's why Chris Minns stumbles when he's asked a question like that. Because he knows that he's either going to piss them off to the extent that he lights that match and the combustible environment goes up in flames, or it's just not going to work. Because, all right, fine, you banned Islamic extremist groups, but the people who make up those groups are still here. They're not going anywhere. So It's not going to make a single bit of fucking difference. So instead, here's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to try and ban white Australia now, or at least in New South Wales, they're going to try to do it. Because we are an easier target. They know that you're not going to upset social cohesion by, say, targeting white Australia. And by that, I mean the NSN and EAM. So white Australia is an easy target. And that allows them to tick off a box on the checklist when they're asked, what are you doing about the rise of anti-Semitism in Australia? They will simply say, oh, well, look, see, we banned white Australia. Because this is exactly what they've been doing so far. They're saying, oh, look, we banned Nazi salutes, we banned Nazi symbols and all this. We're not going to touch the Muslims because we're shit scared of them. And they're not going to deport them because that would be politically unpopular. So...
well, that would cause riots. There's no situation outside of literally, just fucking, harassing, Joel and co. That wouldn't result in some kind of ethnic upheaval at this point. Congratulations, fucking shithead.
Yeah, right. So, look, I don't know if I have much more to say on it, to be honest. I'd probably just be repeating a lot of the things. I did watch John Howard's interview on this, and he made a point, just like so many other commentators have, that the guy who wrestled the gun off one of the shooters was an Arab. Was an Arab Muslim. Part of that story that a lot of people don't realize, when he took the gun, he let the gunman actually walk back to his firearms and his ammunition, and
Huh.
he he ended up actually shooting that guy later. Uh, some of you have
Well, there
probably
was
seen the Oz video where it's like it's quite symbolic of what we do. Like we wrestle the gun away, we point the gun, but we don't actually fire it. Um, Now, look, I'm not. God knows, like if I was in that situation, what I would do. He may well have just not known how to fire the gun, because uh, like guns like that, it's not as simple as simply pulling the trigger. There's other things to
yes.
take into account. So he just may not have known how to discharge the firearm. I don't know, but yeah, I mean but it is telling. It is definitely symbolic that like we have the power to actually do something about this, which is mass deportations, but we don't. We let the very same people who commit acts like this continue to live in our country, along with the ethnic groups that they hate, and you are guaranteed to see more of this in the future. And both sides of politics are complicit in this, and neither side of politics actually offers a genuine solution to it. The only one offering a solution to all of this that would actually fix the problem is us, okay, is white
Yeah.
nationalists. And I don't mean Pauline Hanson, okay? Okay, fine. She basically wants to ban Muslims. Okay. What about Jews? What about the people who
Who
create the
brought them here?
conditions under which you welcome Muslims into your own country?
Yeah, no, and by the way, we've also lost the excuse that they can't just, deport someone within hours or detain and deport someone within, a few days. Because we saw with Gruta, that's not the case. So how much
Of
more
course.
effort would it take just to pull these people up? Because we know it's not like local authorities or the border control doesn't know the exact address of these people, um, and just pick them up in the middle of the night and deport them. Especially because we knew that they went to the Philippines to study, to train with radical Islamists. Like,
Yes, and he
just
was
keep.
known to ASIO. Both of them were
Yeah,
known to ASIO.
I think he was because they actually had on his record that he went to the Philippines and obviously had his digital communications because I think with India you kind of get like so with that caste in India gets like so inbred that they're retarded and didn't have any operational security. So that there we go.
Mm.
That's the shot there. Literally.
Yeah, but let's not monitor that guy. That guy who we know who has gone to bloody like Islamic training cells in the Philippines. Let's go after Joel Davis instead for a tweet. That seems to be a higher priority.
Let's deport someone from going to a completely licensed police protest. Police
Right.
approved protest. Yeah.
Exercising political communication and breaking no law whatsoever. All right, let's move on to other news before my head
Great.
bloody explodes. Okay,
Yep.
let's talk a little bit about travel allowances. So, Anika Wells, despite insisting the whole time that the amount of money she has spent with her travel allowance is completely legal and within the guidelines, and we know this, the coalition has basically admitted that as well. She has nonetheless referred her use of the allowances to the NACC, which is, of course, the National Corruption Watchdog. Um,
Yep.
she also says that she understands the gut reaction that has emanated from the community. It's funny, the ABC just keep highlighting like the football events that she went to. Um, they don't seem to mention the UN climate uh, trip that she took to New York, where she made like a 6 minute speech, I think it was, and that was it. Like her and her staff were flown over, like just for that, and that cost 100 grand. So yeah, definitely, that does not pass the pub test, as they say.
Look, I'll think they'll find her expenses completely within the bounds, and that's because, like, technically that is where the limit is for someone of her position. And do other politicians rack up bills like this? Yeah, but if you wonder why they have like a private jet company or a private jet take them over, it's because the private jet company invoices those expenses as other expenses, and gives them like a $10,000-$20,000 line item for the actual flight, and then hotel and accommodation, etc. That is also supplied by the thing is then just put out for the rest of the cost.
Right, right.
So I think she just didn't
Um,
know the ball game, didn't know how to play ball.
yeah. So look, Albo has also said that he's asked the Independent Parliamentary Expenses Authority, yes, that's a real thing, for advice on whether or not the rules to do with perks. Uh, oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Seeing if the rules are basically good enough in terms of what perks politicians can claim. Uh, yeah, look, I would argue that they're probably not restrictive enough. If you manage to
No.
spend 100 grand, if you manage to spend the cost of a luxury car on a trip to New York, something's gone wrong there.
Yeah, dude,
Now,
a two-stop trip to New York from Australia to probably starting in Australia does not cost $100,000. It costs more. Even if you're going in something really, really fancy, it's at like the $22,000 mark. So that's
yeah,
what,
yeah.
78 grand unaccounted.
So he had said that, once they have their little independent inquiry into all of this, there may be reform underway. I think Anika Wells should kind of consider herself lucky because Bondi is just the kind of distraction that she needed. Um, Everyone's focus is on this. Remember, this was actually Sky News' number one story before Bondi happened. Now they've got a new
Yes.
target. So Anika Wells, I think, would be really breathing a sigh of relief over all of this. It was looking like she would have to resign, or at least temporarily resign, while the NACC looks into this matter. She's probably going to get away with that now, though. Um, Now, look, uh, it's not like she's the only one doing this. So you've also got the Attorney General, Michelle Rowland. She is paying back a portion of expenses that she claimed for a trip to Perth. Um, so this is very typical. Like when you expose like one politician, all of a sudden all these other stories just start coming out. Uh, Kind of like when Scott Ludlam revealed that he was a dual citizen. Remember the
Yes,
dominoes
that
falling in
was.
that?
Oh
Like,
my god.
yeah. So this is usually the way it goes. Um, so what else? We've got Andrew Wilcox, who is from the Nationals. He also billed an excessive amount to fly his wife back and forth from Canberra. And Sarah Hanson Young, who, yes, as David Lionhelm says, shags men. And she's married to a man who is considered to be one of the top lobbyists in Canberra, Ben Oquist.
Yep.
And she is on the hook here for charging almost $50,000 to fly him back and forth from Canberra as well. Um, Even though this guy's a lobbyist, like, he is supposed to like pay for other people's travel. He's not supposed to have Canberra paying for it for him. That's very
Yeah, it's,
unusual.
well,
And
we gotta
it's
save
also
money. We
telling
gotta save money.
when that story came out, Sarah Hanson Young was not doing any media. She basically just went into hiding. So yeah,
Yep.
don't think it's just it's her. Oh, Mark Butler as well. Um,
Label is going to be
oh,
somewhere on this list somehow, isn't he?
Yeah, Tourism Minister Don Farrell. Look, I won't go into all the details, but let's just say there's a lot, okay? And it's from both sides of politics. It does look like there's more from the government, more from Labor, but also remember they're the ones who are going to be traveling more. They're in government. They have more appointments. They have more functions and stuff they need to get to. So, and I also mentioned last week that the Howard government, considered by many to be like the best conservative administration we ever had in this country, their first term in Parliament was just absolutely plagued by travel expense scandals. They actually lost three ministers during that time.
Yeah.
It was big. So yeah, no, every few years this kind of stuff just kind of happens. David Crisafulli, so the Premier of Queensland, um, his Director General has been given nearly $20,000 worth of gifts. Um, but this is actually not from taxpayers; it's from corporate donors. Hmm. All
Oh.
right.
Still a
All
dumb
right.
amount of
Let's.
money.
Well, look, on the topic of political donations, they are about to lift a restriction that was placed by the Labor government previously in Queensland. Now, that restriction was on developers giving political donations. Now, not a surprise that developers typically give their money to the Liberal National Party rather than Labor. So this was strongly criticised by the LNP at the time, and they basically said, well, look, we don't put restrictions on you receiving union donations, so why should we have the restriction for developers? So they were clearly saying that, this isn't to kind of clamp down on political corruption. It's actually just to starve us of funds. So they're lifting that. So
Okay. Well, let's see
they're
how
actually,
this affects party politic.
yeah, there's still a cap. So it says that what they're proposing would effectively quadruple the cap. So it says that one donor can donate $50,000 over the 4-year parliamentary term. But how many donors do they actually have? There's multiple. So they do get a lot of money.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I mean, look, I hate developers. When you think developers, think of someone like Harry Triggerboff.
High
These are
rise
people.
Harry, as always.
High rise Harry, yeah, who just wants us to all live like cans of sardines, cram us all in, big Australia, and just keep building those buildings up.
And port them
Yeah,
in, put them in the pod, and make money while doing it.
yeah, make a shit ton of money while doing it, and pay off the LNP the whole time while you do that, while you ever increase housing density. Okay, so onto migration. The arrangement that we have with Nauru to basically shift all of our indefinite detainees, this is being challenged by one of those detainees. So this is a 63-year-old Iranian man. We've covered this guy before, actually. So here's why he says like this would violate his human rights. He's got asthma, right? And Nauru is a very hot, humid place. And apparently that would play havoc on his asthma. Now, to be honest, I don't really know much about asthma. I don't have it. But can we just remind this guy? He's from Iran. Now, I've never been to Iran, but I'm pretty sure it's very hot and humid in Iran as well, as in just like Nauru.
I'd imagine it gets its desert plains. Tirana is basically built on a swamp.
Yeah, like I've been to the Middle East, and holy fuck, was it hot and humid at the same time. So I don't get how this guy could like, or is that his excuse for like not going to Iran as well? It's not actually. It's his sexuality. He says he can't go to Iran because he's bisexual, but he apparently also can't go to Nauru because he's an asthmatic.
It needs to stay here. Can we send him to Iran and just see what happens? Like, I kind of just want to do that.
Well, that might actually happen in the end because, look, what I think is going to happen is this High Court bid will probably fail. I mean, look, it could go either way. It's not a shoe in, but I'd say it probably will fail. Then he'll get deported to Nauru, but then Nauru will deport him to Iran, like after 3 years or so, when the attention has kind of worn off. They'll just quietly put him in a plane and send him back. That's what I think will happen.
Fucking hope so.
And And well, look, why do I think that? Because the Nauru president basically said that when he was asked, like, do you rule out the possibility of sending all of these detainees back to their original country? He's like, no, I don't rule that out. So, in other words, what he's doing is he's taking a multi-million-dollar payment from Australia to settle refugees, and then he's not even going to keep them. He's just going to send them back anyway. It's just an easy bit of money for, but I mean, I guess that's third world politics, isn't it?
Oh
Just
yeah, yeah.
accept that first developed world bribery money when you can, and just renege on the deal later on if it's too difficult for you.
Yeah, it's not like it was going to stop them. And even at the time, we said that money is not meant to actually resettle these people. It was something like a ridiculous amount, like 20 million a head. And it was like, yeah, no, that's not. This is corruption money. It's always corruption money, whether it's
Mm.
like, Solomon Archipelago Island wants global warming or, work visa money. And Nauru wanting $20 million a head to resettle people that aren't going to be resettled. And, obviously we did just cover that.
Yeah, and by the way, all up, this is actually projected to cost Australia $2.5 billion over 30 years. All right. The initial payment, $400 million, and then we are to give annually $70 million to Nauru. You add all of that up, it comes to $2.5 billion. So you see, what will happen is Nauru will go, oh, look, we'll send them back after we've collected, say, 500 million or so, and then we'll send them back, and that'll be enough. Okay, fine. They'll cut off the rest of the money, but we've already got a shit ton.
Yeah.
We've already managed to cheat an enormous amount of fucking money out of Australia. So we'll just let them go.
That's even under the assumption that that the money won't continue because it's quite secretly being knowingly spent on something else.
Of course. All right. Okay, now we have some news that ever since it's harder now to get into America, right? There used to be, well, I mean, there still is like a fairly large market of people traffickers who work in Southeast Asia and send the boats in various directions.
Yeah.
They don't tend to send many of them to Australia because, well, our border force will intercept them. They almost always do, and believe it or not, even under Labor. But now it looks like there's been a slight uptick in the amount of boats trying to get to Australia because people smugglers are saying to them, well, look, it's too hard to get into America now, because they have actually upped their border protection and everything. They're going to take in a record amount of so-called skilled migrants.
Yep.
But, just
Indians.
like with our Conservative Party here in Australia, they give people the illusion that they're tough on migration simply by being tough on border protection. stopping the boats, as Tony Abbott would say. So, as a result of that, these people smugglers are saying, well, look, America's too hard, go to Australia instead. So, yeah, we're actually getting a lot of Chinese nationals trying to get into Australia now. And a lot of these people, they're corporate criminals. Because do you know what they do if you're found guilty of white-collar crime in China?
Execute you.
They will shoot you and send the bill for the bullets to your family. I love that little quirk that they have in their justice system. So yeah, rather than try to infiltrate America, they're trying to do it here in Australia now. But they're, I think the message will kind of get to them pretty soon that it's just as hopeless trying to get in to Australia via our waters than it is America.
Yeah, and also like just for like Chinese citizens escaping, etc. Like we still have those like secret Chinese state police stations that literally just come and like kidnap you and privately deport you as well.
Yeah, which is good. That's actually that's like a form of Chinese espionage in Australia that I support, because they are much more effective than our own immigration officials of actually deporting illegal Chinese immigrants. So, yeah, I fully support that.
Now that those guys know that you didn't go to the US and you definitely went to Australia, yeah, it's going to be even worse for you, buddy.
Right. Okay, now, Susan Lee seems to be postponing the details of the coalition's migration policy. Now, apparently, the Liberal moderates are saying that this like hypothetical manifesto is, quote, a rhetorical exercise to placate Conservative MPs. So, think people like Andrew Hastie there.
Yeah.
So
Conservative in question marks. Andrew Hastie.
This manifesto said to be based on 4 policy pillars. So those are addressing housing pressures and skill shortages, restoring stronger Australian values, and targeting international students who are gaming the system, and also visa overstayers. Okay, now look, we've covered the stuff on skill shortage and housing. I think our views on that are quite well known. This one about restoring Australian values. Well, look, we talked about this last week. They're simply just talking about like having a citizenship test. They just ask, the most easy questions, like when did Australia federate or something. And, all you have to do is a few Google searches the night before, and, you'll ace that exam the next day. That's really it. That's what they say in terms of like actually like screening people who will uphold Australian values. That's all they do, is they just get them to do some piss easy multiple choice test. It's not going to screen fucking anything.
Nope.
Okay, the one on international students. Well, the policy that Peter Dutton proposed, as opposed to Albanese's restriction, was just like slightly better. And not only that, Dutton actually, the Liberal Party, the coalition, voted against Labor's cuts to student migration in the end. Remember that?
Yes. Oh, man.
Now, the legislation managed to pass anyway, and we got 1 year. Wow, 1 year. So 2025 academic calendar, we had like, I don't know, what, 10% less student visas, something like that. Of course, the universities were screaming about it, but it is all coming back full pelt for semester 1 next year.
I remember I was back in university during the COVID thing, towards the end of it. And I just remember like overhearing, like Dean dean stuff and etc. Because I had to go and fucking go and make. I went to go and apply for a teaching fellowship position, and literally that was the only topic. It was like, oh, this is brutal. We can't take this. I need my one extra 100 million Southeast Asian people here so I can buy a new yacht.
Yeah, it's a $40 billion a year industry. It's probably more than that actually, because that $40 billion figure, I've been citing that for about 2 years now. So it's probably bigger. It's probably like 50 billion now. It's enormous. It's one of Australia's biggest industries. It's an enormous
Yep.
commodity. Um, oh wait till you hear this one. Members of the Chinese Communist Party and other organisations with anti-Australian values could face tougher vetting under the coalition's migration
Ooh.
policy. So how about that? Yeah, so they're going one step further than the citizenship test, and they're actually going to apply, well, could you say, extreme vetting to people who are associated with the CCP. Whoop-de-doo. Who gives
Yeah,
a fuck?
whatever. Doesn't really affect us all that much.
No. You know, Chinese are still the biggest import market we have for students, closely followed by India, and I certainly suspect that India will overtake them very soon. But look, that's how the Chinese are flooding in here, you know. And yeah, okay, fine. They say that they're looking to target overseas students gaming the industry, but no, I mean, look, when you wouldn't even vote with Labor to just put a dent in the foreign student trade, I'm sorry. And I mean, what's a moderate liberal leader going to do that Peter Dutton wouldn't do? I I can't imagine.
Dude, if they
Like,
fucking do anything about the students gaming the system, it's going to be like the Indian students from India. And it's going to be because they literally go to degree mills. They sign up to degree mills here in Australia. Like I made a note about this one. I was in Kelmscott, and there was like an academy for like industrial design or some bullshit like that. And I was like, wait, literally a year ago that was a nail salon, and now it's like a.
right.
And it's like, what in the fuck is going on here? And then you're gonna have protests like when California like removed a shit ton of fraudulent CDLs, and then you had these India guys protesting like they had the right to do fraud.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get
You know, look,
protests like that.
like I do actually support these new powers that Jason Clare has. He's the education minister, and that's to actually cancel courses unilaterally. The reason why is because so many of these ESL courses, where that's where you go to learn English, are
Yeah,
fake. Either
yeah.
that or like, yeah, you go there, you basically learn nothing, and then they just print off the diploma or whatever it is for you at the end. Um, Even though your English skills are rat shit. So yes, absolutely, we should shut those places down, like no questions. Uh,
Yeah, it's like every time I see, and this is Australia, not just America or Canada, so it's everywhere. Like the truck driver crashes, killing two or family of two, and then obviously there's someone who's got like a camera cell phone video um of the driver. It's some fucking Southeast Asian dude who can't so a Southwest Asian dude who literally just can't speak English. Like, just absolutely mush mouthing it. Oh
okay,
man. Righty.
okay, on to climate and energy. Uh, well, we've got an interesting report here. So this is from the Australian Energy Market Operator, AEMO, or however it is you want to pronounce it. And it
Emo.
says that coal is going to be needed in Australia until 2049. So this comes after a 12-year extension for coal by Labor.
Ha.
So we were supposed to, do away with it or pretty much by 2030. That is, certainly the aspirational goal anyway that Labor has been citing. But every now and then they have to capitulate in some kind of area and say, okay, we can't exactly close down this plant, or we're going to have to use gas instead, or many many things along the way.
I think the most realistic of the copes was going to using gas instead. I think that was out of
Yeah,
all of them, but yeah, the fucking timescales were always bullshit, man.
well, yeah, of course they were. We got a bit on that actually on the next story, but yeah, I mean every time because remember, AEMO's, it's not like it's some bloody like NGO funded by the oil industry or something like that. It's just the energy regulator in Australia.
Yeah.
They not, it's not like they're bought off by the fossil fuel industry or anything like that. And they basically repeatedly say that, like, yeah, prices are going to go up, and you can't actually have a stable electricity grid unless you have a fair share of fossil fuel in the mix, because we just don't have the amount of green energy to make up for what we've lost. Um, so,
Yeah, you'd
yeah, going
you'd
into the
expect them
next
to
story.
align more than yeah, you'd expect them to align more with like government policy, which is currently spruiking green energy still. Um, so yeah, no, this is interesting.
Yeah, well, look, the next story, I don't usually include these in the prep because this is a commentary piece. I generally, we do our own commentary here, but
Yes.
this one actually went through and really kind of analyzed this report. It was a 115-page document that was put out by the regulator, and basically all of the forecasts that Chris Bowen gives or the government gives, like we're going to have an 82% reduction by 2030 and figures like that. All of those are based on the best case scenario. They're based on forecasts that are essentially unattainable. So
Yeah.
that is the estimate. That they're the numbers that you get to if and only if you have the maximum amount of green energy put onto the grid, and that you and also have the ideal weather conditions that would provide power to uh, those green technologies. So, in other words, it predicts the strongest of all winds and the sunniest of sunny days to power the wind turbines and the solar farms. They are utopian forecasts. And AEMO spells that out. They say that, look, unless you get the very, very best case scenario for green energy, you are not going to meet any of these targets at all.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's the
this is
thing.
the
Like, you
energy
get
regulator.
these, you get the pro like green energy thing, and then they do like a really selective cradle to grave where like, oh, this solar power a panel doesn't need ongoing maintenance, so we don't have to include a maintenance cost, and it's got the maximum lifespan, and it's got a 100% duty cycle, and it's just like it's the duty cycle that they lie about all the time just to see if they can make themselves a little less polluting than like a fossil fuel
Mm.
option.
Yeah, and I think it was last week actually that we went through. Chris Bowen made some kind of prediction about how much this wind turbine farm would would produce, how much energy it would actually produce,
Mm.
and the estimates were based on basically the maximum amount of wind possible, right? But that's never actually what you end up with. You know, you never get the best case scenario.
No.
So yeah, he's basically saying if the wind is blowing as strong as it possibly could, we would end up with this amount of power. And he's basically saying that is the amount of power that we're going to generate all the time. And that is just fucking stupid. And the government is
Yeah, if you've
completely
ever
dishonest about that.
have you ever talked to anyone in a power generation facility, even green ones, to be honest? Yeah, no, they talk about uptime and downtime, and yeah, because that's a fucking thing. It's completely unavoidable, even with green technologies.
Yeah.
Oh well.
All right. Um, Yeah. So the government is just finishing off uh, the details on their East Coast gas reservation scheme. Now, that forces gas exporters to actually set aside a certain amount for Australia. Um, this is actually a copy of a system that we've had here in WA for a long time now. Um, so, one of our previous Labor governments, uh, this was when Jeff Gallop won, and then he got depressed and he had to resign, and then we got Alan Carpenter, very forgettable premier that we had here in WA. But
Yep.
he did actually implement what I think was a very good system, which was making these gas reserves, these set asides for Australian consumption, compulsory.
Yes.
So, for like basically for every like gallon of gas that exporters sold overseas, they had to put 15% of it aside for an Australian reserve. And that is there so that, when you have really demanding times, say if you have a heat wave and everyone is running the air conditioner, that you've got enough reserve power there. Now, you see, this is what they're shit scared of in the eastern states now, because with taking so much coal out of the grid, you're faced with the prospects of blackouts and brownouts. So, and
We've already started to
obvious
see some of those as well.
that,
At least
yeah.
the brownouts, yeah.
Like, remember, we've already seen it in Adelaide. Remember that big
Yeah.
power outage that they had, and Adelaide is like the leaders, or one of the leaders in showcasing green energy technologies. So obviously, that is enormously bad PR for the federal government and to a lesser extent state Labor governments. So yeah, they're putting aside these gas reserves so that they will actually have some reserve fossil fuel to fall back on, should there be enormous pressure on the grid. And there will be enormous pressure on the grid because our population is going up all the time. We keep taking coal off the market and we fail to replace it with the amount of green energy that is required. So, yes, they desperately need this. And the Greens are so utopian that they still oppose stuff like this because they basically say that gas is just as bad as coal. And so setting aside a reserve like this is, environmental vandalism or whatever kind of language they choose.
Yeah, Greens policy and brutal acceptance of realities aren't exactly the most conducive things ever.
No. Okay. All right. So, the battery subsidy.
Mm.
So, Chris Bowen has announced changes to the battery subsidy scheme. And it looks like they have already spent $2.3 billion on the scheme in only 6 months. So, this is basically where you can actually buy a battery for your house. Yes, this is a thing. So, it's not just about solar panels and that kind of stuff. They actually want you to be able to have some reserve power for, one of those days where it's not, the wind is not blowing and the sun is not shining. Um, so, what is it here? Yeah, they would subsidize the purchase of a battery by around 30%. So that would save you round about $4,000 in buying one of these batteries. So I don't really know
Look,
how many people take this up. I mean, I know plenty of people with solar panels, but not with batteries.
yeah, you kind of need both to make it economical. But the problem is like the largest battery I've seen for a residence is 15 kilowatt hours, and that's not all that much. That's not all that much use time. A lot of people like just use it as like, oh, okay, well, you know, winding down in the evening, we'll switch over to like battery power because the solar panels are done for today. Um,
Hmm.
But one of the things, again, I've never seen a fucking honest cradle to grave of batteries where that they're not just as polluting, or in some cases, I don't know if the technology is a little bit better or the economy of them is a little bit better these days, but like paying themselves off as well. So maybe this might help, a subsidy might help, or a rebate might help. But one of the things that has just recently occurred to me is that well, occurred to me, but not insurance companies, by the way, is that people are insurance companies are winding up premiums on houses with batteries installed. That's because of a spate of fires, residential fires. So I think one guy might even said recently, I was one of these engineers on the little news short that I was listening to by the ABC, said that like, yeah, we might return back to 1980s levels of house fires if we get wider adoption of batteries.
Right. Well, look, something else that they mention in this article in the Australian is that people are actually opting for the bigger batteries and therefore the more expensive ones. And because it's just, a percentage that the government offers, people are buying these very, very expensive batteries and they're having, around 1/3 of it subsidized. And that meant that they've actually drained all of the money that the federal government had set aside for this scheme. So, yeah, Bowen has actually said that they're allocating another $5 billion to it, and they've already spent 2.3. Now, tell me again about the nuclear reactors who are apparently going to cost Australia $600 billion, whereas they just piss up money like this left, right, and centre all the time, and we barely ever talk about it.
Well, it barely ever reaches the public. That's the problem. How much saturation in the public do you think that little budget has?
Yeah, and like, I don't want to give like the Liberal Party advice, but they finally come to their senses and abandon net zero. But something that they never really hammer home is just how expensive renewable energy is. Now, Labor were very clever about this in the last election. I mentioned the $600 billion figure, right? It's total bullshit figure, by the way. But I did actually, I think it was Peter Dutton who once referred to the $1 trillion green energy fund. Because, yes, if you actually add it all up, it would be well over $1 trillion that we have already spent on green energy. And couple that with rising power prices, I think it's actually pretty easy to sell to the Australian public that this is a scam and that we've been duped. But the libs never actually hammer that home. They'll have slogans and say, we're going to ease cost of living and put downward pressure on electricity prices. But they never actually come out there with the real shocking numbers that make people think. I wish they would. Remember when they did this with interest rates? You might be a bit young for that, Halsey, but back when Mark Latham, this was when he was opposition leader, they absolutely creamed Mark Latham because they convinced everyone that interest rates were going to go up. And they actually used figures. They said, how much extra would you pay for a mortgage that's this big if interest rates went up by this much? That scared the shit out of people. But yeah, they don't campaign like that anymore.
No, I think they're properly fucking lost. I think that possibly even that level of intelligence has left the party. Because if you're like going on to be a successful career politician, where do you think you want to go? Do you want to go to the party that is dying brutally?
It used to be the place to go if you wanted the best chance of actually sitting in Parliament. That used to be the Liberal Party. Yeah, look, I've said before, I hate to tell people this, but Anthony Albanese is going to go down in Australian political history as a Labor Party hero. He is. Why do I say that? Because he won 2 elections in a row And the last Labour leader to do that was Bob Hawke. Yes, that's right. Bob Hawke, all the way back in 1983. So, and he's going to sit out this term. That's clear, and he will probably win the next election as well. So you're talking about 9 years of Albanese. That, by Labor standards, is very, very long. He will go down as a Labor legend. It's tragic, but it'll happen. Okay. Yeah. So in Victoria, and yes, they have a Labor government in power. They've actually just approved exploration licenses for 2 new gas projects. So they know as well. You've got to have gas in
Yep.
the mix.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I skipped a story. So in New South Wales, the price of electricity, well, just like any other part of Australia, in regional areas is more expensive than in Sydney. So they're saying, what is it? The minimum daily electricity tariff in metropolitan New South Wales can be as low as 79 cents. But when you go to the regional areas, the lowest daily charge is $1.57. So that's about
Yes.
double the amount. Yeah. So, when you then want to build transmission lines over people's properties to to get more green energy on the grid, and therefore actually drive your prices up even more, people in the regions are hurt disproportionately by stuff like this. This is why they get so pissed off. And it's not because they're ignorant rednecks, it's because they genuinely get fucked over with all of this.
Yeah, I was going to say I was very happy that they won that battle last month to get at least those installations delayed.
Yeah, some of them were actually refusing to let them onto their property. They gathered together, like they all supported each other, and they would gather onto like a farm site and just block entry. That was great to see.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I think this is a battle that they have to win, or a war that they have to win. Will they win it? I'm just going with my hypothesis from last time, which is no, not in the long run.
Okay, well, look, don't worry. Here's a story from the ABC, and this is about tapping into our biofuel industry. So, um, we have the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, and they estimate that Australia has a low carbon fuel biofuel industry that could be worth up to $36 billion by 2050. Um, so, look, there is already a $1 billion fund to stimulate private investment in what they call low carbon fuels, biofuels. This is part of the Future Made in Australia program, which is about manufacturing green energy products in Australia. Um, well, I don't know, Nolsey, can you red pill us on biofuels? Are they really this like super form of energy that emits barely any
Yeah,
carbon?
no, um, not for urban areas. The diesel engine was actually meant to run on biodiesel. That's what Rudolf Diesel's first inclination of it was. He didn't really get far with that though, unfortunately, because agricultural stuff. But yeah, no, like unless you're like like a heavy crop grower, say like uh, corn, uh, some grain and whatnot, you're not going to be able to make any real amount of it.
Right.
Some companies do collect cooking oil from restaurants and convert it, but they're far and few between. I imagine if it was more viable, that
Seed
it'll
oil?
be more everywhere.
Are you
Yeah,
saying that they burn the seed oil?
they burn the seed oil.
Holy shit! Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I think we covered the Rio Tinto aluminium smelter last week. So
Yes.
this is quite incredible. It's the federal government that is effectively going to pay for the electricity bill of this aluminium smelter in the Hunter Valley. And if they don't, they'll have to close, and that will mean 1,000 jobs gone. Um, so this is another indicator. I mean, remember, rising power prices has an effect across the board. It's not just everyday people, paying higher bills. It's also businesses, because, yeah, surprise, surprise, businesses actually need a lot of electricity to function, and
Yes.
uh, and that includes mineral resources companies like Rio Tinto. Even though they are one of the biggest multinationals Australia has ever produced, um, they still can't afford to keep these individual projects or some of these going with the way power prices are. And we end up in this bizarre paradox where we end up actually subsidizing resources companies, you know, who, the Greens want us to batter them over the head all the time. Instead, what we do is we just basically force them to diversify their investment. In other words, invest in green energy as well as fossil fuels and resources. And then when their electricity prices get too high, we bail them out. It's quite a system. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I think I said this last time in the case of aluminium, which is one of the very few metals we actually produce a final end product of billet aluminium. Used to be called condensed electricity, and so yeah, if if electricity prices are unaffordable, also housing prices, yeah, then you'll just need to forever bail them out if you want that industry around.
Right. Now, this is on top of, so Labor has just said that the cost of its tax discount for electric vehicles will surge 15 times initial estimates. So that goes to $1.35 billion this financial year. And again, this is part of the Future Made in Australia program,
Yeah.
um, which I can't remember the exact figure they gave, but the budget blowout for this program is just happening on a daily basis, almost. Okay. Oh God. So the Torres Strait Islands will host a climate change summit of Pacific nations, and will invite them to collaborate on renewable energy and other strategies. Yeah. So the Torres Strait
Conference for
Islanders.
ripping off Australia, ripping off Australia for bribe purposes.
Yes. So remember, there are other Indigenous friends that we have in Australia. Remember, we actually have
Mm,
two. A lot of people forget that.
yep.
But look, one their main grift, it's a bit different to what mainland Aborigines do, where they say, you upset the rainbow serpent mining company, so therefore give me lots of royalties. The way they do it in the Torres Strait is, well, they do it the same way the Pacific Islanders do. They say climate change is going to flood them, and so you need to give us money. So now they're getting in the the international level and collaborating and kind of sharing trade secrets, I guess, with other countries like Vanuatu, Tuvalu, etc. Um, and I mean, what do we think all of this is about? They actually went to court a few months back. They went to the federal court, arguing that the Australian government had a duty of care to Torres Strait Islanders to protect their homes and culture from rising sea levels. So, what were they trying to do? They were trying to gouge money out of the federal government. Okay. Now, believe it or not, the federal court actually ruled against them. They said that the Australian government does not have that duty of care. So they've got to resort to other methods. So, you have one of these big international summits like they're about to have in Turkey, and you invite all these people to come together, and you basically just publicly beg the bigger countries for more money. And you know what? It'll probably work.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay,
Oh
now
boy.
I just got to bring this up. Tanya Plibersek, despite the fact that she has actually approved like new mining sites and even gas reserves, I believe, there was one that she rejected. So this was the Blayney mine, which we've covered before. Now it's only a $1 billion mine, so it's not definitely not as big as some of the more extravagant ones out there. However, this was actually based on uh, Aboriginal cultural heritage. So, what specifically was going on here? Well, apparently, in the dreaming, which is loosely like the Aboriginal religion, if you can call it that,
Mm.
they have something called the blue-banded bee, and apparently, if you were to give the go-ahead to the Blayney mine, this would upset the blue-banded bee. That's right.
Oh no.
Um, just like the guy who built a small bridge on his own property here in 2J, uh, he was the one who upset the rainbow serpent. In that, apparently, the rainbow serpent lived in the little lake that he built the bridge over. I'm not making this shit up. This is true. This is
No.
what happened, and he
This
had
is,
to
this is
pay this
dumb bullshit
enormous
we put
fucking
up put
fine.
up with on a day-to-day basis, man.
Yet he paid this an enormous fine for building a small bridge on his own property for upsetting an imaginary being. Tanya Plibersek has done the same here because of a fucking bee. So
Just to clarify, is the bee like a species of bee that's real, or is it just a
no,
mythological figure?
no, it's fake. It's like
Okay, Jesus
it's not
fucking
real.
Christ. I was trying to
Now
give
look,
them the benefit of the doubt here, like being like, okay,
yeah.
maybe no.
Okay, now look. To be fair, there were other reasons given as well. However, this was included. If you read, you see, when these approval processes go through, you accept submissions from interested parties, stakeholders, and one of the submissions was from a traditional owners Aboriginal corporation, as they call them, and yeah, that mentioned the importance of the blue-banded bee in the dreaming story, and that was actually cited as one of the reasons for knocking it back. An
Fucking
imaginary bee.
Christ. I tell people
Okay.
this retard fucking shit, right? And
Yes.
they can't believe me. They're like, "Are you fucking serious? Are you really fucking serious?" I'm like, "Yes, yes."
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. People struggle to believe when you actually talk about the rainbow serpent and how people have been given fines or have been denied permission to build a structure. People are dumbstruck by that, and I don't blame them because it's just retardation. But we've actually got it baked into our legislation in this country.
Yep. Every construction project normally has a set aside budget for Aboriginal cultural heritage. Most construction
Yep.
companies, even residential ones, have a line price item for that.
All right. So let's talk about the social media ban, which
Oh
has
yes.
come into effect now. It came into effect, just like a week ago.
Yep.
Um, Now,
Shit's
look,
already gotten wild.
yeah, so, many people have jumped over to these alternative platforms. Lemonade, I remember, was one I read. Never heard of it before, but yeah, the federal government will certainly be giving a lot of traffic to these apps that were previously not very popular. Um, but look, if you go out there and if you talk to the kids who use social media and use devices just like anyone else does, I don't think things have really changed for them. Um, and look, it's always been illegal for under 16s to look at porn, but has that stopped them? Of course not.
Nope.
So
Porn
I
sites
I have
aren't
some
even
thoughts.
included on the fucking list of these things, man.
No, but I mean, to be fair, that it is actually if you're
Yes.
under 18, it is illegal for you to access a porn site. That's true.
Yes. Yeah, it's true.
But I mean, who actually gets prosecuted for that? No one. And yeah, I mean, the government doesn't put the same kind of pressure on, say, Pornhub as they do on Facebook to keep underage people off the platform, and they obviously they should. But yeah, look, I've said before that yeah, in principle, I do support this. I think getting under 16s off social media, particularly the more toxic social media like Instagram, is a good thing. I just really doubt the practicality of it, and I also am suspicious of ulterior motives, such as sending teenagers down the so-called right-wing rabbit hole,
Mm.
um, where YouTube algorithms eventually lead someone from Paul Joseph Watson to William Luther Pierce.
To the
You know,
the,
the
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 evil
algorithms actually
non-rapists are gone.
the algorithms did work that way once upon a time.
Yes.
Like back when I was getting radicalized, if you could put it that way, that is actually the way the YouTube algorithms uh, operated. And you know, Nolsey, I used to listen to you guys over on the heel turn, and
Mm.
it's incredible looking back on that now that a show like that was actually on YouTube, taking super chats and everything.
Lay on the spikes and never get up.
But the idea that YouTube operates like that now, I mean, come on, what a joke. They have the
Oh fuck
precise
no!
opposite. The
I can tell you
algorithms are now,
the exact moment that all changed, and it was when that fucking transgender or transsexual fucking thing, crossdresser, ContraPoints, literally went and literally got an audience with the CEO of Alphabet and had a wine, and that was Susan Wojcicki at the time.
yeah.
That was
I
the turning
think,
point.
oh, okay. I was going to say I thought that the turning point was Charlottesville because I remember
Uh,
after Charlottesville, that's when YouTube showed a shitload of channels like Amran, Red Ice, all of those ones went under after Charlottesville.
yes. Yeah, a
Even
little
though
bit after
Amran was
Charlottesville, everything
not
just
at Charlottesville, and neither was Red Ice, I don't think. I mean, they're a
yes.
bloody like a Swedish outfit, aren't they? But still,
Yeah,
they were banned on
think so.
mass. Anyway, sorry, I got on a massive tangent there. Uh, so look, I guess I would say that when it comes to keeping kids off social media, that's probably just a job for parents. You know, like it really shouldn't be up to Facebook to keep your child off of Facebook. It should be you who's doing that. So, you know, parents need to kind of be more aware, you could say. Uh, I mean, I know parents now are definitely way more tech savvy than what they were. Um, you
Because
know,
it's like it's a section of parents that grew up with the internet.
that's right. Yeah. So it's a bit different for like someone like me who grew up with parents who were just completely technologically illiterate. They knew how to turn the computer on, and that was about it. Uh, but yeah, now millennials are having kids, and they're tech savvy.
Oh
So
yeah.
really isn't like any kind of excuse. You should know what is out there online, how toxic it is, and how important it is to keep your child off it, particularly if it's a female. I think it's
Oh yeah.
most destructive for
Dude,
girls.
fucking social media was designed in a lab to fucking obliterate, teenage girl minds.
Yes, and if you tell a girl that she's ugly, or should I say, if you convince a girl that she's ugly and that everyone thinks she's ugly, that is like the ultimate way of psychologically torturing her. And
Oh yeah.
uh, that is what social media can do. Because when you create yourself as a little e-celebrity online, uh, basically your sexual appearance is everything, and people will be brutally, brutally honest as well. They'll even say things like smash or pass, play the yes no
Yeah.
game. And when girls actually then start competing with each other and bullying each other over that, it just spirals out of fucking control. And yeah, that's when you get girls killing themselves.
Yeah, well, yeah. If you become decently popular on the internet, you basically have the superpower to obliterate any like sub 20-year-old woman ever. Probably even higher than that. You could probably go up to like 30s in some instances.
Right. And I mean, how often
They're
do you hear
blaming.
about like an OnlyFans celebrity who kills herself?
Oh
Des-
yeah,
despite the fact she's a multimillionaire, lives total luxury, yet she's still miserable.
in all fairness, there's a lot of factors to that.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Um,
They're blaming that riot over East on the social media ban, and they're actually covering it because there were some white boys involved.
which riot?
There was a God, I just had it a second ago. There was a whole bunch of youths that congregated outside of a shopping center and started beating the ever living piss out of each other over East, I believe, in New South Wales at some beach. It's just
Oh,
happened recently. It's actually was just a thing on Twitter today.
it's probably just been drowned out by Bondi. 'Cause-
Maybe. But yeah,
Okay,
the
look,
usual suspects were carrying on about it on Twitter because yeah, the footage does include young white people. I was see if I can find it.
right. Okay, now look, we're going to cover a United States story here. However, it has direct relevance to us in Australia. This is about booking a holiday to America. If you want to get in on like a travel visa over there, they're now asking you to hand over 5 years worth of social media history. Um,
Oh,
so that means they could check your tweets or your Facebook or whatever it is, and if they find anything on there that they don't like, they will deny you a travel visa.
Jesus fucking Christ!
And on top of that, obviously, that is an enormous act of surveillance and privacy intrusion. Uh, and I don't think there's any doubt that that would be used politically, just like Tony Burke sending Matthew Grutter back to South Africa. If they see that you've, I don't know, been posting Pepe memes or something like that, well, now it'd be Franklin, wouldn't it? I think Franklin
Oh, that's Franklin
usurped
now.
Pepe. Yeah. But give it
Yeah,
3 years, Kuipers using Franklin instead.
yeah. Some people use Grok AI to change like the covers of Franklin stuff to make it look like he's lynching other stuff. And there's there was a one
I haven't
book and it's
seen
meant to be like a yeah. They're pretty. The Franklin ones are pretty intense, man. I'm not gonna lie.
it. Okay. No, I have
I
seen a few
found
of the
I found the
milder
riot that
ones.
people were complaining about. It was in
They
Melbourne
do give me a
actually.
shock. And you know what? I still like Pepe. I mean, I know he was like stolen from us. Well, we stole him first. But I don't know. I still have an affinity. Like when I see the pictures of Pepe, I'm sort of reminded of 2015. I'm reminded of the glory days where we ruled YouTube. you know, maybe you'd get your Facebook page banned, but you could always go and
Yeah,
post whatever the fuck you wanted on YouTube. It was just so good.
it was goddamn fucking nuts to be honest. The fucking Pepes I saw, especially on Telegram. Holy fuck. Those
Oh yeah,
ones
rippers.
I'm pretty sure like nearly 90% of the Pepes I saw on Telegram would now be illegal.
Quite possibly. Yeah. All right. So talking about the economy. So
Mm.
um, there is $13 billion in unexpected spending that is going to put considerable pressure on the budget. So this is what Jim Chalmers had to say on his latest budget update. Of course, next budget is not all that far away. It's in May.
Yep.
So um, it looks like we're going to blow out to a $30 billion deficit for this financial year. So that's blown out due to a number of things. So increases to the age pension, $6.3 billion in natural disaster relief. I think that was spent on Sunday. That fucking, did you get caught up on the storm on Sunday? That was nuts.
No, that was yeah. I had the power flick on and off in my place for a little bit. That was
We were actually out shopping, and then when we like ran back to the car, the traffic lights were off in the street. It was fucking chaos out there. Um, and oh yeah, $2.1 billion for military superannuation schemes. Holy shit! How does the so like the military employees, they must be on pretty good superannuation funds. Anyway, the point is, Labor has spent a shitload of money that was not actually budgeted previously. Now, there were 20,000 jobs that were lost in November. However, the unemployment rate has stayed steady at 4.3%. Might I add, though, it was up by 0.2% compared to October. So we did actually, and that's a significant amount. And as I always say, it's way higher than what these official figures will tell you. Now, here's another thing that is hurting the budget: illegal tobacco. So Australia is now losing more tax revenue on illegal tobacco than it is collecting. So this shows that government coffers missed out on as much as $11.8 billion on tobacco revenue through illicit sales in the financial year 24 to 25. That is well in excess of the $7.7 billion that it received from tobacco revenue.
dude.
So, and also, might I add, how much money are they now spending on police task forces to combat the illegal tobacco trade? You got to take that into account.
That'd be
as
another
well.
interesting thing. Senator Murray's interview on this, where he says like there's no evidence that illegal tobacco is an expanding industry in Australia, and I'm just like, are you fucking retarded? Are you actually? Well, that guy is retarded and gay, but yeah, dude,
it is quite possibly now bigger than the legal industry.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not big by his definition?
Hey, the Lebanese are firebombing each other over it. It's got to be worth some time.
He's saying this while his cabinet colleagues are announcing funding into illegal tobacco crackdowns, as well as the Queensland government, who had like a major blitz on it recently. It's like, yeah, okay, we're spending multi-millions of dollars on it. We're losing $11.8 billion in revenue. But no, it's not a problem. All right. Right. So the big supermarkets are complaining that they're being targeted with unfair regulations. So this was legislation that Labor put through recently to combat rising grocery prices. Now, this is where they say, look, like it is illegal to have excessive pricing on groceries. I'm not sure of the detail, but price gouging. If you want an easy example, that would be, say, if there's a flood and there's a shortage of clean drinking water, and then all of a sudden you start selling bottles of water for $20 each. That's a clear example of price gouging, and believe it or not, that's happened before. Like, it's happened in America during cyclones. They've done shit like that. So fair to say that Coles and Woolies are not doing something like that. However, like Coles released a statement, and they've said now that their profit margins are so thin that for every $100 a customer spends at Coles, Coles only makes a $2.50 profit.
Bullshit. Their fucking profits
Yeah,
have gone up year over year.
yeah. I mean, I'm definitely pressing X to doubt on that one. Now, I do know that like grocery prices are notoriously sorry, profits are notoriously thin.
Mm.
But you know, when you have that much turnover, like the amount of goods that Coles and Woolies unloads every day is just absolutely enormous.
He's like, my brother in Christ, you are the only fucking private industry that like people have to use.
Right, and there's basically only two big players. There's Coles and Woolworths, and then you've got assortment of smaller ones like Aldi and IGA and whatever.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, also like there was a select number of industries that absolutely boomed during COVID. One of them was most definitely groceries. Coles and Woolworths did very, very well during COVID, um, especially through sales of toilet paper, I believe.
Yeah, that was fucking nuts. I didn't even need to go to the store to buy toilet paper at the time. I went to a spud shed, and the line, literally, there was like an absolute shit ton of it, which just proves how retarded people are, to be honest. The line was like fucking wrapped around the aisles, wrapped around like 5 or 6 different aisles, and then all the way to the little actual lineup thing, and then yeah, it's fucking nuts.
It was
I was in
crazy.
there for like, I was waiting for an hour and a half in the line.
I don't think I ever waited that long. Um, yeah, I remember at the time, I was definitely a worker affected by COVID. I actually went on job, what was it called? Job Keeper? Yeah, I was actually on that for a while. And so I would always just go to the shop during the quietest times of the day, but it was still fucking packed. You know, like I
Yeah.
would go in there at say 11 in the morning, which is typically a very quiet time on a weekday, and it would be fucking packed, absolutely packed. And also, whenever a snap lockdown was called, which we got numerous, multiple ones of that in WA. As soon as one of those lockdowns was called, people would just fucking speed off to the grocery shop to buy more toilet paper, whatever else.
It's
It
fucking
was
nuts.
insane. It was fucking zombie apocalypse hoarding that people were doing. Okay.
Oh yeah, but fuck supermarkets. They've been very exploitative since COVID.
Okay, so look, on welfare, and this is somewhat related to the budget. Um, Apparently, welfare is rapidly being steered away from means tested cash benefits towards universal schemes that are accessible by anyone. Uh, Certainly, the NDIS would be a good example of this. Even if you are employed, you can get assistance from the NDIS in various forms.
Mm.
Um, but people who say genuinely do need it, apparently, they're the ones missing out. Um, well, I mean, when it comes to job seeker, it's called now, isn't it? Yeah, that tends not to really move with the inflation rate,
No.
or at least the real cost of living. And I do actually genuinely feel sorry for people who need job seeker who are out of work for whatever reason. Um, but yeah, it's definitely this contradiction where we've got people getting like outrageously generous packages from the NDIS, um, and other forms of like what you could call middle class welfare, while ordinary people get screwed. And you won't get screwed if you're, say, an ordinary Aborigine. Um, there's a multitude of other programs and subsidies and privileges that you can access from the government that are simply not available to white Australians. Um,
If you're Indigenous, you don't need to work ever. You just don't, and you're kind
no,
of culturally expected not to.
yeah. I don't even think Jacinta Price really works. You know, she gets everyone. She gets everyone in the Liberal Party to like talk for her. you know, she comes
Jacinta
forward.
Price, biggest
She has like a
Aboriginal consumer of government welfare.
it. Well, no, look, you know how like on TRS they would always say like, if you're a black person, there is like the ultimate grift is waiting for you. It's right by your feet if you would only take it, and that's to be a black conservative. You know,
Oh yeah.
well, it's the
Yeah,
exact same thing in
Mike put that
Australia, except for Aborigines. And Jacinta Price is one of those people who has realised that grift, and she's in on it, and she has done very, very well as a result.
I was gonna say Mike Pinovich fucking put that out there before, like literally, I think it was just a year before a absolute tidal wave of black conservative influencers showed up.
Yeah, maybe they listen to him.
Yeah, maybe black
Yeah.
Hebrew Israelites listening to their favorite anti-Semitic show.
All right. All right. So on housing, bad news as always. Um, oh wait, no, sorry. The first story. This is actually somewhat
Mm.
positive. So this is a council in Melbourne South. They have recognised the legal rights of residents in an affordable housing estate to remain in their homes. Um, so these people were going to be evicted from this estate, and this estate was known as Techno Park because
Jesus,
it
would you
was.
want to stay there really?
Well, yeah. So this is the thing. It's not a nice place. It's in an industrial zoned area. So, like, all around you are, you know, factories and uh, places producing in a large amount of waste and large fuel tanks and things like that. Not exactly scenic.
No.
Nonetheless, these had people who were there in affordable housing, so government subsidized housing, and they didn't want to leave. And eventually, because basically, they just wanted to use it for development.
Yeah.
Whatever company wanted to bulldoze so they could build whatever on it. So it was kind of like in the castle, where they stopped the airport from being expanded. Um, and it looks like they were in a property that was pretty much just as undesirable as the one in the castle. Now, that though, while I guess that is somewhat of a feel good story, doesn't that also just show the sheer desperation that people want to cling on to like some tiny piece of housing in an industrial zone? You know, like, please don't kick me out of my industrial zone house known as Techno Park.
Please don't kick me out of my absolute fucking shitbox struggle den. Yeah, well,
Right.
a lot of people are in that position actually.
Yes, which is sad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ugh.
Um, okay. So this is concerning like Airbnbs in Brisbane. So um, permits are going to have to be sought for hundreds of homes in Brisbane if they continue to operate as short stay accommodation. So, these are people who, have holiday homes or whatever, and but most of the year, they rent them out as like Airbnb type things,
Yeah.
short
I
stay
used to work
accommodation.
with a boomer who had like 8 of them.
Yeah, yeah. When I was in Adelaide recently, we stayed in one, and very rich boomer, very very rich, nice guy, but holy shit, like he does like no work. He just has all these fucking properties that just like basically automatically generate money for him, and just it's unfair.
Yeah, this is my most leftist fucking take that I still have on something, which is like that being a professional landlord shouldn't be a fucking thing.
Yeah, doing all the practice of house flipping. You've heard of that?
Yeah.
Um,
Commercial arbitrage as well. That's
it's just yeah, like it's just such easy money, and unless you're already in the market, it's almost impossible for you to actually get in as a competitor.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, yeah. So look, this I guess is another desperate attempt to free up accommodation because what they're saying is, okay, we don't want these ones to be short-term accommodation. We need you to be providing long-term accommodation because we need to accommodate more renters. Now, again, like, okay, yeah, in principle, yes, I like this idea. It does seem kind of wrong that you have so many of these properties just sitting there empty while you've got people desperately seeking accommodation. But at the same time, it's just you're tinkering around the edges, trying all of these secondary solutions when you should be going for the primary cause of all of this, which is immigration. But we continue to ignore that. So we focus on cracking down on Airbnbs instead. It's just minute tinkering that is a drop in the ocean and will basically make no difference. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to industrial relations. So, the inquiry that's going on in Queensland at the moment, we've got the former Queensland ministers, and that actually includes the opposition leader, Stephen Miles, who used to be Premier as well, by the way. He was Premier for like a few months when Palaszczuk resigned. Anyway, him and these other ministers are seeking taxpayer funding or basically what you call indemnity for this commission inquiry. Now, that essentially means that the government is going to cover their legal bills. Now, I've got to say, like, look, I don't blame them for this. I mean, if an inquiry of this nature kind of comes your way and you get subpoenaed and or expected to appear, you're going to need legal representation, and it's not really fair that you should have to foot that bill yourself. It's obviously not fair that the taxpayer should have to foot it either. But again, this is part of my broader point, which is that inquiries of this nature are absolutely pointless. It's the Liberal Party just forever trying to batter the union movement, particularly the CFMEU, to produce a list of recommendations that will never be implemented. This is just what happens again and again and again. And even though we covered that guy, I forget his name, who was actually calling on the Liberal Party to stop its holy war against the union movement, there's no signs of it stopping. It
No.
remains this fixation, this fucking fetish for them.
It's all they got left. It is all they have left.
Yeah. And it's like, it's such an irrelevant thing. I mean, when does like issues like union corruption show up in a list of issues that voters care about? Okay, never fucking comes up. You know what comes up? Immigration and cost of living. Every
Yep.
time, those are the two issues that come up. Yet the Liberal Party thinks, oh, look, people are concerned about the cost of living. Let's go after the unions that represent them. And let's rip up the work from home laws that make things a little easier for them to manage in their family life. Let's go after those things. Yeah, you're not
Yeah,
going to win
it's
votes.
like you're not gonna get a lot of public sympathy for fucking with unions anyway, because like who the fuck do unions rip off? It's property developers, it's
Yeah, builders.
corporations, etc. Yeah, that's who they fuck with. They're not not the average blue collar worker, really. Don't you say?
Right, and the days of the CFMEU, doing like a strike every month or something. I mean, come on, those days are long, long gone. They basically died in the 90s.
Yeah.
It hasn't been like that for a very, very long time. And like to a large extent, I guess you could say that wages in the construction industry have just sort of lifted naturally anyway. It's not so much to do with union bargaining anymore. That's probably going to change, though, considering the amount of foreign workers that we import all the time. but yeah, maybe there was a time when people were like, oh, okay, the Liberal Party is standing up against those union bullies who would take like unjustified industrial action. But that doesn't happen anymore. Yet the Liberal Party has not gotten over its hard on for this issue. Okay.
We're in like the era of the evisceration of wages and workers' rights. Like, why the fuck do you think taking on unions would be a good idea?
Right. Yeah. Okay, now, oh God. Okay, here's another story from The Australian, again, on the power of unions. So, this is talking about the use of artificial intelligence that obviously, more and more companies are adopting to increase efficiency. But apparently, under a new wave of industrial reforms that Albanese has in store for us early next year, part of this is to regulate the use of AI, but not only that, but give unions the right to sit in and negotiate what kind of AI they will be using and how it's used. When it comes to the data that AI collects, the Minerals Council of Australia and other business lobbies are concerned that that data would have to be shared with the unions. Now, we kind of covered something similar to this last week, and that was about, say, apps that Uber drivers use to, do things
Mm.
like record their hours, that kind of thing. The unions are saying, like, well, look, we want to look at that data because sometimes they're working too many hours or they're being exploited in some way. So those AI products and apps, to an extent, can be used to see if workers are being treated fairly or not. So it makes sense that unions would want to have access to it. They would want to look at it in the same way that they want access to a work site. How else are you going to tell if the work site is safe if you can't
Yeah,
enter it?
and for the same reasons, they the body corporate responsible doesn't want them to have access to work sites from time to time is the same reason why they don't want them to have access to AI data. And I'll also add on top of that stuff, there are protections for where that data comes from. These AI companies, they need to feed large amounts of data from everywhere. It's never just the data of it's never just the data necessarily owned by that one company. And I think the union could get some legal leverage because they will absolutely positively find some illegally sourced data in those things. But also in terms of the what AI is used and how it's used and etc. Um, that's I do support that just because the narrative right now is like AI company. Like I got this take. I think it was probably a fucking Tumblr or some shit by some whiny artist. But it's probably the closest thing I've heard to a decent technology-based understanding of what your modern day AI is. It's we've taught this dog to that a whole bunch of stuff by training it on people speaking English to kind of speak English, and then the CEO turns around and says, "Good. When can I acquire it so I can sack 100 people?"
Right. Yeah. Um, but there's so many examples of, say, people who drive rideshare. Because most of those drivers, they don't just work for, say, Uber. They work for all of
No.
them. They work for
Yep.
Lyft. They work for DD. They work for all of them. So that's actually a good way of clocking up an illegal amount of hours. Because when you say clock off with Uber, you'll clock in with Lyft and go off again.
Yeah,
So
again,
yeah,
everyone's seen the back of when you order an Uber and they see like 3 or 4 stickers.
yes, right. Yeah, you'll see that this person is like multiple things. Um, and that's what the Pajeets do a lot of the time is, they go
Yeah,
out and they work like 16-hour days, and they've clocked up hours for, say, 3 or 4 different companies. And because those companies aren't sharing the data, and because there's no union or any kind of like workers representative looking at that data, it just all goes completely unchecked, even though they're clearly breaking the law.
Mm.
So yeah. Okay. All right. So in New South Wales, the new opposition leader, Kelly Sloan, has actually backed the Labor government's reforms to workers' compensation schemes. Now, what they're doing here is that they are freezing the current rate of workers' compensation premiums for 18 months. So Labor were trying to push this through for a long time because they said that basically what was happening, people were claiming too much. And one of the things that has really exploded is that people no longer just file a workers' compensation claim due to being injured. They file it due to mental issues, and there's a very long list of stuff you can use there, like burnout or something like that. So in other words, it's been easier, and there's been more people claiming more often. And what does that do? Well, it puts the premiums up. You've got to make the money back somehow. So what they've done here is you can't have a premium rise for 18 months, but also it's going to be harder for you to make a claim. So this was the contentious part of it. And, you can definitely see the argument there. Like, we live in a society with ever declining mental health states, increased prescriptions of SSRIs, suicide rates are going up, things like that. There are obviously real concerns out there about people's mental states. But, at the same time, I know people who have taken out like these schemes, or they've gone like on a really, really long period of leave just because they say they're stressed or something,
Yeah.
I won't give details, but I can certainly think of like a few off the top of my head where the person was just taking the piss. Like they should have been going to work. They absolutely were capable of doing it, but they didn't, and they were just free riding on the system. But again, this is tinkering around the edges. We have a crisis in social capital because of multiculturalism, because you need to have commonality to have community.
Yeah.
Community is really like what people gives people's lives meaning. When you have healthy relationships and friendships with the people around you. And the best way to actually nurture that is for the people around you to be like you, to speak your
Have
language,
some
to
common
share your
ground to
values,
stand
to
on.
share your interests.
It reminds me of those videos I saw out of Canada where it's literally Canadian Indians. That's a sin. Oh my god, I need to strip that. These fucking Indians in Canada, like basically explaining how they ripped off the food banks, free food.
Right. No, I was just I was talking to my girlfriend's mum the other day, and she was saying that the company she works at, the manager changes there a lot, and that whenever the manager changes, the workforce changes because it's like a different ethnicity each time. So, like, if an Indian manager comes in, all of a sudden, everyone working in the office is Indian, you know? Like, so why can't we do that? Could you imagine if, like, a current affair, I don't know if that's still around, but, found out about a business that actually had, like, a form of nepotism in favor of whites? Just
Oh
imagine
boy,
the scam. How
dude.
much of a fucking story would that be?
I remember seeing a screenshot from Reddit a while back. Well, not too long ago, actually, really. And it was just like, hey, I work at like a Dairy Queen in a mall, and I asked my boss, and then just Reddit said like, who happens to be Indian that's not related, you know, Oh, why have we only hired Indians recently? Like, well, not recently. She actually said like over the past like 2 years we've only hired Indians, and then the next day he fired me. Is there anything I can do about this?
Right.
Fucking
Oh,
Redditors,
man.
man.
Okay. So, South Australia. So, there is an ongoing pay dispute there for prison guards, and now sheriff's officers have voted to join in the industrial action there. So,
All right.
I kind of have a chuckle. I was like, oh yeah, we actually have sheriffs in Australia, don't we? They chase up people who for unpaid fines and that kind of thing. Um, anyway, like in a lot of Australia, they've had to do rolling lockdowns in prisons there
Mm.
because, well, if you don't have enough staff, if you don't have the right ratio of staff per prisoner, you can't supervise them in the open. They have to just be locked in their cells, and that makes things worse. The tensions always rise when you do stuff like that. Um, but working as a prison officer is a very unattractive occupation. Um, we're always told that
It's
they're,
a
they're evil.
it's a very 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 select group of people that want to be around a whole bunch of violent criminals or just criminals in general as part of their job. It's
Well,
very
well, like, yeah, okay, I know what you mean. I mean, you can kind of say the same thing about cops. Uh,
oh
a
yeah.
lot of cops, uh, they crave power and authority. But that doesn't mean all cops are like that. Same thing with prison officers, I think. Yes, some of them are cunts, but some of them are good too. I'll say I've known a few, and um, it's a real mix of both. I think. Yes, it'll inevitably attract like people who crave power, but it'll attract people who want to do some good as well. But the point is, they need to be paid more and they need to be treated better, and they need to be the media needs to stop demonizing them as well all the time. Um,
Because I guess we're gonna need them in the fucking future, unfortunately.
okay, so back to Queensland. They're actually the CFMEU is demanding that they go back to the extreme heat rule. So if you're wondering what
Mm.
this is when they stop work on a site when the weather exceeds 35 degrees, or if it is 29 degrees and over with 75% humidity. Um,
Which will melt you in
these,
the exact same way.
yeah, anyone who's worked in 75% humidity will know that that's fucking torture. But yeah, these figures kind of vary state to state. I know in WA, the CFMU had a 37.5 limit. And then as soon as it hit that, that's it. Job is shut down, everyone goes home. Um, but that's been reversed under the LNP.
Yeah.
Um, now, look, I think I actually side with the CFMEU here. You can die at work working in an excessive heat. And remember, the work they do, for the most part, is physically demanding. Okay, forget about those girls in the pink high vis who are
Mm.
lollipop ladies. I'm talking about the guys actually really doing the hard work in extreme heat. That shit can kill you, can literally kill you. So, you know, there needs to be some regulation about that, or you do like kind of I don't know, you can do different kind of work on that day when it's that hot. There are ways you can work around it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you need some basic protections there. Okay, so lastly on IR, Jacinta Allen. Uh, she's been accused of gaslighting Victorians over her work from home plan. So this is after the Commonwealth officials related to this say that they have received no consultation briefings or requests for legal advice for the state, despite warning warnings the proposal is likely to trigger a constitutional showdown. Yeah, so they're saying here that the kind of work from home laws they're proposing could actually violate the Constitution. Now, in what respect? So, when John Howard passed work choices, I know this is going back many years. When was this? 2005, I think. The federal government actually took industrial power for the most part from the states. So industrial relations became, the regulatory ambit of the Commonwealth, but not entirely. So there is basically debate, you could say, in legal circles as to whether or not the Victorian government has the legal right to implement laws like this. Because, think about it, the work from home laws are really just managed by the federal government.
Yeah.
States don't really get involved in this, but Jacinta Allen is trying to. I would say because it's politically popular. That was obvious in the last federal election. And Jacinta Allen, remember, is in the process of sacking 1,000 public sector workers. She's got to do something to kind of win them back. And giving them generous work from home arrangements, well, that could be one way of doing it.
Yeah, I was going to say, she hasn't been hitting very many home runs recently.
No. Previously I pretty much thought she had it in the bag for the next election. I'm not so sure now. And not because of the Lib's new leader. The young, bubbly, 35-year-old or whatever, who as well, by the way, said that she wants another royal commission in Victoria into the CFMEU.
Oh my fucking god.
It's not because of her. It's because Jess Wilson, that's her name. It's because Jacinta Allen is just such a fucking shit premier. And the crime problem, of course. People are just seething over that. Okay. Aboriginal news. So, still in Victoria, they have now given the formal apology to Victoria's Aborigines. This is after they had a long kind of truth-telling inquiry where they were told a bunch of lies about Aboriginal massacres. And, this sort of, the epitome of that was when Jacinta Allen was talking about how heartbroken she was when she found out that the area of Melbourne where she grew up as a child was actually the site of a massive, massive Aboriginal massacre.
Dun, dun, dun.
It wasn't. Go to Quadrant if you want to read about this stuff. Basically, every massacre was not a massacre. It was law enforcement responding to outright criminality of various Aboriginal groups. Anyway, this is all formal. It's been signed. This includes a treaty.
Fuck's sake.
And when you read the ABC article on this, they mention all the symbolic stuff behind the treaty about how it's, recognition of sovereignty never ceded and all that crap. What they don't go into is the financial aspect. Because remember, how do you make a treaty? A treaty is when you're at war and then you agree, both sides agree to lay down their arms, but under certain conditions. And that basically means that the defeated army or side gets compensated in some way. They're persuaded to give up and concede, but then they're given a payment. That's basically what Aborigines want to say here. They're like, okay, we'll give up the war here, but you got to pay us off.
It's always money. It's always money.
Yeah.
These people.
Yeah. Oh, so look at this. Here's how the ABC worded it. The treaty is aimed at strengthening First Peoples' right to self-determination, representation, and decision-making. Yeah, see, the other side of this, right, is that it also effectively introduces an Indigenous voice because there's an Aboriginal advisory board that comes into it. Even though they said they weren't going to do that, and even though we voted it down
Yeah.
at the federal level.
Yeah.
Okay, now the Tiwi Islands, they have been named as the newest area of Indigenous Protected Area. So this is the other IPA. I hadn't heard of this IPA before. Indigenous Protected Area. Basically, that means native title. So this is another 700,000 hectares of land uh, that that has been included here. Now, that means that traditional owners have management over the land. It doesn't mean that it's exactly, private property of a Aboriginal corporation. However, it does mean that they have an enormous say over, the agenda that's set for that land. And as we have to remind people, this means gouging developers and resource companies who need to use that land to run their business. It means paying off the local Aboriginal tribe to be able to build a mine there or whatever it is they want to do. All right. Oh, and hate to tell you, Aboriginal viewers, listeners, of which I'm sure there is none, but the number of Indigenous deaths in custody last year was the highest since 1980.
Dun dun dun.
And 1980 was actually the first year they started monitoring data like this. Now, remember that deaths in custody, that includes police watchhouses, and it even includes the back of a paddy wagon, like just when you're under arrest. Like if you die of like a heart attack or something in the back of a police car, that's a death in custody. Anyway, apparently they've gone up. So the year from 24 to 25 says 33 of the 113 deaths in custody were Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders. Okay, 33 in a whole year? That's like nothing. I mean, how many? Give us the figures on how many Aboriginal people are arrested each year in Australia, because I can tell you to be a shit ton more than 33. So okay, that number's gone up, but it's still very
It's not
low.
a big number it's not a big number in the objective sense either.
No, and look, I don't know how the figures would compare now, but when we had the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, it found that you were actually more likely to die as an Aboriginal person outside of jail than you were inside of jail. That was ultimately what the Royal Commission found. I don't know if that rule would still apply now, but yeah, certainly the figure is still very low. Okay. So New South Wales, they are now going to make permanent a scheme that they had been trialing for around 2 years. And that is, if you're a good driver, you actually get given your demerit points back. So you don't just lose demerit points for, speeding or whatever. But if you're a good driver, you can actually get your points back. So to qualify, you must be free of traffic infringements for a full calendar year to have one demerit point automatically expunged. So,
all right,
yeah,
so
it's that generous, but it's all right, I guess.
I guess it's just a weirder version of the current system we have, where it's just like a fixed set of years before you get them back.
Yeah. It's just kind of incremental. Okay, so the South Australian government is going to spend $674 million over 10 years to implement 129 of 136 recommendations of the Royal Commission into Domestic, Family, and Sexual Violence. Yeah, look, feminists are actually right when they tell you that domestic violence is going up in Australia. That's true. But
Mm.
it's not because of the rise of incels or toxic masculinity or anything. It's to do with importing brown people. Why is it that most of these women's refuge centres that have been springing up over east are for Indian women? Yeah, Indian husbands bash their women all the time. They're not known for that, but it is a big thing, and we need to
Yeah,
push that. That needs to become a stereotype of Indian men because it's fucking true.
when I was looking into the youth homeless group and its people over here, I noticed that there was actually Sanskrit and Arabic and etc. and African French used on their materials these days. So I wonder what they're saying by that.
Okay. So under new laws in Queensland, a child that is 10 years or older who is convicted of an offence can be fitted with an ankle monitor even if the parent or guardian does not consent. So the current legislation says that yes, you can attach the ankle monitor, but only if the parent or guardian agrees to it. Now it seems they can force you to do it. So, this is sort of an expansion of the adult crime for adult time, adult time for adult crime laws. Uh,
Yeah.
Queensland, just like Victoria, has an explosion of ethnic non-white crime. And so, well, the knee-jerk reaction is just more coercive measures, which I don't, in principle, oppose. But again, you're not getting to the root of the problem. The root of
I
the
was gonna say,
problem
why are we
is
doing this exactly?
white. Who is committing the crime? Always ask that question. Um, oh God, last story. This was a beauty of a story that the Noticer actually put out there. It was footage of a naked Aboriginal man who was, clearly off his head, riding on the front of an ambulance and smashing the glass and like headbutting it and stuff. Uh, I can only imagine how terrified the driver would have been, or the paramedics on board of this guy.
Yeah.
And there was a massive delay in response. It took the police a very long time to actually go there and sort it out. And I think paramedics should probably be armed, honestly,
Yeah,
because
with a
that just
baton or
happened to be an
fucking
incident.
something.
I mean, that one just happened to be caught on camera, and kind of a big deal was made out of it. But stuff like that happens all the time to paramedics. They get
I was
assaulted a lot.
Yeah, I was once out at a bar with like a mutual co-worker's friend, a circle of friends. One of them was an EMT in the northern suburbs over here, and I knew about this, how much of an issue this was, and I asked him like, hey, like how much do you think you get like assaulted in like in a 1 month period? And he was like, dude, I get assaulted like 3 times a week.
Yeah,
And he's
yeah,
like,
that's
I'm
crazy.
not talking like, oh, they said something mean to me, or like, they threatened to punch me, or slapped my hand away, or something like that. It's like, yeah, I've had just dudes like wail on me in the back of an ambulance.
Right. Now, look, this was actually in the Goldfields Esperance district, which, in other words, this is a regional area of WA. And apparently, they're operating at 40 officers below um, the recommended staffing level. They're short 40 cops. Uh, so it's not a surprise that there would be a delayed reaction to an incident like this. Well, look, I just deferred to what I said earlier about prison officers. It's the exact same
Yep.
problem with cops. Okay. Um, Now, medicinal marijuana. My God. So yes, we do have that Trojan horse here in Australia. So
Yeah.
it is legal to use it medicinally now in, I think, basically the entire country. Now, I've seen a few of these stories where the clinics that are private who are selling this as a product are becoming increasingly aggressive in their marketing tactics. Now, they in this story, they profile the girl who actually has a history of schizophrenia, and you know, anyone will tell you, marijuana and schizophrenia, they don't go well together. In fact, people who are, let's say have a disposition to developing schizophrenia, uh, the, the schizophrenia can be brought out of that dormant state by marijuana. There's actually a lot of studies on this. Like, it's absolutely true that, like, while weed may not say like outright cause schizophrenia, it can bring it out in people who are vulnerable to developing it.
Mm.
And this woman was saying that she was actually previously prescribed cannabis for mental health issues, right? And she tried it and she found that it actually made her worse. And so she gave it up. But then, because of the fact that the companies knew that she had previously purchased medical cannabis, they started sending her ads constantly, like telling her to get back on it. Now, I
Get
mean, I'm
back on
blown
your
away.
shit, bitch.
I'm blown away by the fact that, like, it was prescribed to her in the first place. This is a woman with a history of psychosis, of schizophrenia, of mental health issues, and they're like, "Oh, you know what would work? A treat for you? A joint." Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, marijuana makes you paranoid. It makes you anxious. It basically makes like any mental problems that you have worse. That's why I thought it was a fucking joke when that Alex Greenwich said that when he was traumatized by Mark Latham's tweets, he was medicating with medical cannabis.
Back.
Give me a fucking break. And so it's no surprise that shit like this is happening now. Oh god.
Fucking Christ.
Okay, I think we're both kind of tired, so we'll do a bit of a speed run here. Um, Talking about Pacific Islanders, they're going to have a summit, and you know what? It actually sounds like this summit might be important. This one is not about climate change. This one is about drug trafficking, saying that the amount of illegal drugs that is passing through Pacific Islands has enormously increased. And because a lot of these nations don't really have, high GDP because they don't produce anything, they're effectively in danger of becoming narco states. In other words, like drugs becomes the country's biggest industry or one of the biggest industries. Um, well, yeah, I guess islanders are pretty good at selling drugs, aren't they? If I were to name a skill set that I associate with Pacific Islanders, I'd say probably distributing drugs would be up there. Um, but look, this is in Australian news because the AFP is actually very concerned about this. They're monitoring an enormous increase in the amount of drugs that are coming to Australia's shores via the Pacific Islands,
Well, yeah.
via Pacific and organised crime.
Well, let's see if they spend more resources on investigating that rather than their NSI group for investigating the boys.
Right, right. Okay, on to the Victorian ALP. Ah, you remember Bike Boy? So this is a guy who back in 2013, this is back when Dan Andrews was the opposition leader. Um, he was the passenger in his wife's car, and his wife ran over someone on a bike. Um,
Oh, yeah.
they always maintained that this guy T-boned their car and that it was not their fault at all. And now this guy is actually suing them for defamation in the federal court. And this is to do with a media statement that they put out. The media statement effectively blames him for it. That's all it is.
I remember the political ads put out at the time because it was just that it was just out of high school, and I remember just the ads that came up and just showing because they were showing Dan Andrews hitting a cyclist or thing, not his wife. But I was just like, dude, this makes him way more endearing. Who hasn't thought about fucking running over a cyclist?
Well, yeah. You got to be careful with who you say that to. If you say it to a driver like me, yeah, I'll laugh, but you might actually offend a cyclist. But yeah, no, cyclists give me the shits. Well, look, not the ones who obey the road rules, and the ones who ride single file. You guys are fine, but you pricks who take up an entire lane, stop that! Fucking stop it!
And
It's
also,
just, you have no idea how much that irritates drivers.
You're gonna operate like a vehicle, right? But stick to the fucking laws of the vehicle. You can't fucking quantum switch between being a vehicle and being a pedestrian.
Right. And
because then I need to know what the fuck you're doing because I've got the thing that could just kill you. You know that.
Yeah. If you want the rights of a vehicle, start paying registration and put a plate on that bike. All right. Then we'll start talking about treating it like a vehicle. No, but look, the other controversy around this is the fact that they wouldn't pay this guy out because they were like, well, look, it's your fault. You T-boned the car. But he says no. He says she just drove straight into him. And who knows? I don't know. This story could go either way. I don't have a clue. Okay, so Graham Richardson died. So
yes,
most people, I guess, of late would recognize him more from Sky News. He became a regular contributor on Sky News, and he was one of those former Labour ministers who was Sky News friendly, because not only was he from the right faction, but he had also drifted in more of a conservative direction since leaving Parliament. He had a big Jabba the Hutt look to him as well. That's why I was surprised that he actually lived to the age that he did. How old was he? He must have been 76. Yeah. I thought he would have died, a lot younger, being a fat cunt his whole life. I'd have thought he would have gone earlier. But yeah, he was considered to be really pivotal to Bob Hawke's success as a prime minister. And he's also blamed or given credit for, however you want to put it, for making the ALP interested in environmental politics. Hawke was said to be kind of the first Labour leader to care about the forests and the trees, for example. And Graham Richardson was, said to be instrumental behind that. Okay. Yes, sorry, speed run. So, infrastructure. Melbourne's Westgate Tunnel is actually open. $10.2 billion infrastructure scheme that apparently will see 9,000 fewer trucks on the western suburban roads. So, one of those projects people thought would never get done, but is actually operational now. Now, truck drivers have a proposal for those regional toilets that apparently are really, really fucking dirty, and because truck drivers have to do those big long drives, they get stuck using them. Well, they want people to pay a road fee so that you could actually pay to maintain these toilets. I don't see that one being popular. Sorry.
No.
I'm sorry you have to use those dingy toilets. I know the type you're talking about, and they're horrible. But yeah, that's just not going to fly with the public. Okay. So, Australian universities. Yeah, you see these stories every now and then. Well, guess what? They're being accused of producing a declining education quality. Now, this is where basically they are pressuring universities to pass failing students. So, say if
Mm.
a student gets in with a 48 or a 49, they will just pass them anyway. They go, oh, well, you nearly passed. We'll let you through. Um, and look, we know that just generally, it's easier to get your degree now. It's easier to pass your assignment, your exam, your unit. Um, and it's also easier to get into courses. I remember like if you wanted to get into law, like any law, you needed a TER of like 90 or something.
Yeah.
Or ATAR now, sorry, not showing my age there. What is it now? Like 75 or something?
Fucking
Ridiculously
possibly.
low? You know? Like, so no surprise there.
Angry kitty.
Um, okay. Maybe skip a few of these things. Aged care. Well, elder abuse is growing in aged care. We've covered this a few times. Oh, what a surprise. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are more likely to experience elder abuse. Yes, by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.
Yeah.
No surprise there. They're probably going to. These are the same people who probably beat their children, and now the children are exacting some revenge on them.
Beats.
Okay, now
There's a lot worse stuff that happens frequently.
on the issue of abortion, the ABC has obtained a document that shows hospital managers and executives in New South Wales would not be allowed to use conscientious objection to stop abortion care. That's an interesting term. So abortion
Someone in the
services
marketing
have been
department made that one.
yeah. So that abortion services have been added to regional areas in New South Wales. However, hospitals are not required to offer abortion care. But New South Wales Health says new guidelines for the termination of pregnancy are going to be published early next year and may actually remove the exemption for conscientious objection. In other words, if you've got like staff there who are, say, all Catholic,
Mm.
they would not be able to refuse an abortion like based on their belief. They would have to do it.
This is a gay bakery situation all over again.
Yeah.
Because it's not like there's ever going to be a situation where it won't be available.
Mm. Now, we have a similar situation for euthanasia, again in New South Wales, because, again, you have the same kind of exemptions, people who are conscientious objectors. But when it comes to someone who, say, wants to end their life, um, even when you go to, say, um, uh, Catholic hospitals, of which, believe it or not, we still actually have some, um, yeah, it looks like they're drifting into the direction where those exemptions too would be removed. Now, I'm not like as passionate on this as I am with abortion because, I
Mm.
mean, abortion is just murder, basically. Euthanasia, you're talking about people who live in chronic pain and agony and just want out. I'm much more sympathetic to that. And, what's the point in keeping someone alive if you're just torturing them? Are you actually doing that person a favor?
No, not really. But I do think there needs to be massive guidelines. Like again, every time we talk about this, we talk about that one case from like over a decade ago about that depressed Swedish girl.
Right, who was going to die anyway.
But yeah,
Okay, finally, Brittany Higgins. Well, the whole Brittany Higgins debacle. I'm really just going to talk about Linda Reynolds here. Um, she says that she is going to fight her current legal battle to the bitter end. So right now we know that she's taken the government to court over the compensation payment that they gave to Brittany Higgins, which is $2.4 million dollars. Now that's a pretty bloody big compensation claim. Uh, Even though she worked in Canberra for what, like a year, some pitiful amount, and it was also due to her time in Michaelia Cash's office. So it wasn't just over the alleged rape; it was also to do with like workplace bullying that she apparently experienced. Um, anyway, uh, Linda Reynolds says that despite the fact she won the defamation case against Brittany Higgins and her partner David Shiraz, she has to date not received a cent in the damages payment or the legal costs that Brittany Higgins was ordered to pay. So, how do you then compel that person to hand over the money? You have them declared legally bankrupt, and that is what has happened. So, Brittany
yeah,
Higgins is now legally bankrupt, and so that means that her assets, such as her house, um, are quarantined, and basically they can be sold off, and then the money that is made from that is paid to Linda Reynolds as a result. Um, she said that she never wanted to do it that way, but Brittany Higgins was refusing to actually hand over any of the money. So now she has to. And finally, she's also just asking the NACC, the Federal Corruption Commission, to reopen its investigation into that $2.4 million settlement between Brittany Higgins and the Commonwealth. So, yeah, you haven't seen the end of this debacle. It just seems to be ongoing. Okay, guys, thank you for listening to that episode. We've given you about 3 hours there. We are probably going to take a couple of weeks off because Christmas is next week, of course, and I think both Nolsey and I have earned a break. So,
yep.
or maybe I have. I'm not too sure about Nolsey.
Oh,
Um,
terrible.
he's he's just been running Peng from his Lagos location,
Yeah,
um,
from my
while the
pit
other
in
of us,
hell.
while the rest of us struggle through our wage slavery. But no, thank you for the support for this year. We've actually gotten a few generous donations lately. So, yeah, thank you to those people for that. Um, Everyone have a very nice Christmas and New Year. And yeah, we'll see you in a few weeks.
See you later.